Welcome to the latest excursion on my world travel adventures. Today I'm in Africa, but I'm in a part of Africa where it's very easy to get to if you're in Europe and not impossible if you're in Canada or the United States, because today I'm in Morocco. Welcome to Marrakech. Now, Morocco is a country I first visited some 3 decades ago, and I thought that at that time I'd done Morocco, I'd been to Tangier and I'd experienced the country. But as time went on, there was something about this country, about this part of the world, that seemingly drew me back, and I wondered whether I should give it another chance. And when the opportunity presented itself a fortnight ago to get a flight to Marrakech, here I am. So my early observations of Marrakech are this: it's an amazing, vibrant city situated in the middle of Morocco. It has a bustle, a busyness about it that you would probably expect in North Africa. It also has pristine public gardens. I'm in one of them now. You can hear the distant traffic noise, but you also get the sound of birds. In the Medina, which is about a 10-15 minute walk from here, it's totally bustly, busy, bit scruffy if truth be known, few feral cats, and yet it is that difference, that contrast, that makes Marrakech what it is, and certainly makes it a vibrant and attractive destination. Marrakech, as you might expect, is a busy, thriving city with lots of people and lots of traffic, and yet dotted along its main boulevards are a number of parks, some sizable, some very small, but all of them offer a little peace and tranquility away from the hustle and bustle of the city. So I've moved now from the serenity of Cyber Park, which probably conjures up images of a tribute to Silicon Valley, but is so named because of its proximity to the telecoms centre and museum. But it is laid out like a traditional European botanical gardens, if that's not a contradiction in terms. And instead I've moved to what you might consider to be the beating heart of Marrakech, where it's noisier, smellier and much more dynamic, because I'm in front of the minaret, the tower that is Koutoubia, a most brilliant structure that dominates the skyline of Marrakech in its beautiful pink stone and decorated with traditional Moorish tiling. If you get lost, this is where you end up, because it's sort of like a hub. You've got the bus stops and the taxi ranks, you've got the short walk into the old town, and it's just a mile and a half or a couple of kilometres walk or taxi ride to the railway station, more of which we'll have later on. And yet, despite the fact that I am here and it is busy, and you can hear that, and you can hear the toots of drivers that aren't going anywhere, and tooting is not going to make any difference, you can still find tranquility, because on one side and also behind are another set of parks for you to take in the fresh air, the lungs, if you like, of Marrakech. It really is an extraordinary place, a beautiful place, a lovely climate, splendid minarets, beautiful gardens, busy, bustling. What more could you want from North Africa? So after crossing the road and seemingly taking one's life in one's hand, despite the fact that there is a pedestrian crossing across Ibn Khaldoun and El Mouhidini, I'm now walking towards the old town, and I'm going down a boulevard which on one side has a collection of horses and carts ready to take tourists on a horse-drawn trip, if that's your thing. Not necessarily mine on this trip. I'm going to park that for now. I'm going to head towards the central square, and what's greeting me is a series of green umbrellas and covers, because this market square operates nearly 24/7, and we're going to come back tonight because my goodness, it really comes alive then. But even now, in the middle of the day, with the Medina to my right hand side where I'm staying, in a beautiful riad called the Mara place, which I can recommend. I mean, and I say this in all the podcasts, I can only recommend what I go into, what I see, what I book, and that's the place that I spotted and I booked. I'd never been there before, nobody had ever recommended it to me, and it's an absolutely splendid place. And it's in a labyrinth of small alleyways. Fortunately, the booking included the option of having a car for a small fee extra to bring you to the door, and delivered me about, I don't know, 500 yards away, because obviously the Medina is traffic free in that part, and the final 500 meters was done with a porterage service, all part of the fee, and showed me how to get to the front door. Not sure I'd have been able to do it on my own, but anyway, having paid the extra fee, well worth the money. So now I'm approaching the market square, where there is music and food and beautiful oranges and vegetables laid out. I remember this from my first time in Morocco. I remember the smells of the fresh produce was just something that stayed with me forever, and here we are again, where the smell is slightly different. Very prevalent smell of saffron in Tangier, less so here. More barbecued meats, fresh oranges, tangerines, some apples, pears, lots of water on sale. And then behind us are the, what I would call, traditional Moroccan retail. Bags bearing the logos of well-known brands, which may, but probably may not be authentic. And this, and I know my American listeners don't necessarily like to do this, but you gotta barter. If you want to buy something, never accept the first price. You barter them down, and you can barter them a long way down. This is something you particularly want, but if you think it is too expensive, even though you can probably afford it, walk away. Nobody is obligated to buy anything, because you'll find the same product just around the corner at the next store. To enjoy authentic Marrakesh, you've got to get yourself off the main drag, out of the markets and into the souks. No merci. And that will take you through the souks. Those souks you come to off the main square are clearly geared up for tourists, with coasters and model tagines, fridge magnets. But get beyond there into the real souk, then you're into places where Morocco itself shops, into the marketplaces of the fruit and veg, clothing. There's a man selling second-hand gas stoves to my left, and earlier, thank you, and just tried to sell me something. You will always get this, people trying to sell their wares right in front of you. So to continue with what else you might see, there is a chap just behind us selling second-hand washing machines. There wasn't much of the frame left, but if you wanted a low-cost washing machine in full working order, so he says, then this is the place to be. But it's just, these appear to be pedestrian streets. You'll hear the motorcycles, they're everywhere. Through the narrowest streets you'll find motorcycles weaving in and out, some of them carrying huge trailers behind them. You can buy a bird there if you want to. Earrings on the next stall. Tablecloths here on the right hand side. Our next one, a painting of the Mediterranean Sea. This is Marrakech, we're not on the Mediterranean, we're slightly inland. This is a great stall. This has got fresh herbs and spices. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you very much indeed. And what you don't get on any of the travel programs, and you won't get it on this podcast, is a sense of the smells. My goodness, we've just come into a bit of a market area where there are all sorts of herbs and spices, and they mingle with the fresh breads and the cheese and the meats that are being cooked like barbecues and the drains, and it all mixes to create a unique odour, aroma if you will. And the other thing that's worth pointing out about Marrakech is the colour. It's pastel shades, mainly a pink pastel, but in this particular section we're in, everything's been painted more of an ochre colour, vibrant, live, and quite unlike most places that tourists are sent to. For example, I've just walked from an outdoor souk, and suddenly there's a slatted wooden ceiling ahead of me. So this is slightly undercover. Undercover or not, you'll hear the motorcycles, they're everywhere. And now I'm going past a pharmacy. No, I don't want anything, thank you, very kind. Light store to my right hand side, selling lampshades and stuff like that. So if you want anything, you can buy it here. Don't forget to barter. Never take the first price you're offered. Time for a bit of culture now, and I'm in the Bahia Palace, Palais de Bahia, which was built in the 19th century by the Grand Vizier, the Chamberlain to the local Sultan. It was built primarily as a mausoleum and also as a statement of power, weren't they all? Eventually it got taken over by the French for most of the 20th century, when the French occupied Morocco, governed it if you will, and then in 1952 when the French left, it was passed to the royal family, who then made it available as a museum piece, and that's what it is now. The cost on this day is 70 dirham, that is about $8 US, £7, 7 euros. The price you see is the price you pay. You don't barter your way into the Bahia Palace, and you also don't pay any sales tax. So that's fabulous if you're an American tourist coming here. It covers a substantial part of this bit of Marrakech, and you could see why, as a colonial ruler, the French would take this over and use this to govern this Marrakech and this area of Morocco. Splendid, massive rooms, very airy, cool inside. There's a small garden area to one side. Apparently it opens up to a big garden beyond, but that's been closed. It's winter here. It's winter everywhere in November, apart from the southern hemisphere. But it has been refurbished for 2024, so future visitors will enjoy a much redecorated and improved experience, and that is to say that it wasn't a bad experience today. So lots of rooms. Just be mindful that there are tour groups that come here in massive quantities. I've just counted 50, probably a busload that just come out. Fortunately, and just by chance, my visit avoided them all, and they all came sort of in the later afternoon. Beautiful place, especially in the autumn and winter months, because it's not too asphyxiatingly high temperatures, and a very, very nice place to come. So not expensive. It's called the Bahia Palace, and you'll find it in most tour guides for Marrakech. next sequence is going to be a bit noisy because you'll probably hear a bit of engine noise behind me, and this genuinely is the Marrakech Express. Actually, the truth is, it's not called the Marrakech Express at all. That was a reference that Crosby, Stills and Nash made to the culture of the time in America. It is in fact called the Atlas Express, and today it's delivered me to Casablanca, one of two stations in Casablanca that this train stops at. This is Casa Voyages, a splendid edifice of a station made out in marble and tiles, absolutely enormous. And as the Marrakech Express departs and heads off to Fez, I'm off to explore another cultural centre, Casablanca, made famous by the movie, of course, which came nowhere near Casablanca, but did in fact get filmed on the backlot in Los Angeles in 1942, but yet that movie evokes such thoughts and memories. And starring Humphrey Bogart, Ingrid Bergman and the inestimable Claude Rains. So Casablanca, don't know anything about it. Here we are to have a little look around and see what this city has to offer the tourists from around the world. So what I've decided to do is go and have a look at the waterfront here in Casablanca. It's what it's famed for. And a new tram system is now in operation in Casablanca, so I bought myself a ticket. Costs about $1.50 for a return, and you just pay for the journey. It doesn't matter whether you go to the terminus or just go one stop. It's like 70 cents one way, or you can buy a return for $1.50 or £1.40 it is. And I could here connect with the local train, but it's such a drag to get to the station, which is just over there, and it's a relatively short walk on a fairly beautiful day that I've decided I'm going to take the option of making a 15 or 20-minute stroll towards the coast of Casablanca. My 20-minute stroll down to the beach has probably taken a little longer because, you know, I've been lured by the alleyways where there seems to be an impromptu flea market thrown up at the drop of a hat, well, literally a drop of a hat in some cases. I mean, who needs a 20-year-old second-hand television remote? I mean, what kind of television would it work with anymore? But you can buy one in a flea market in Morocco's Old Town in Casablanca. And yet here we are approaching the new Marina shopping centre, where you can buy your up-to-date 21st century brand new designer outfits. Designer outfits one side, 20-year remotes on the other. Casablanca is bonkers. It took a bit of finding, but I'm eventually walking on the Marina Walk, so I've got to see the Atlantic to my right hand side and some dreadful carbuncles of condominiums to my left hand side. Modern, new, providing accommodation for the rich and wealthy of Morocco and Casablanca, but you know, they are soulless. A bit like the Barbican in London. It's not really got any life about it. But at one end is the Hassan II Mosque, relatively modern by today's standards, with a huge minaret. It towers over certainly this part of Casablanca, but you can see it from most parts, and it's been built right on the edge of the sea. What a statement, and what a building. The Hassan II Mosque, well worth a visit. While diverting off the Place de Belgique, I come across another traditional souk, not the flea markets or the bric-a-brac sale that I found earlier, in what's more or less a parallel street, perhaps only 500 meters away. This one has, again, like Marrakech, a wooden slatted ceiling, and is selling everything from shoes and suitcases, and there's a lovely smell of leather here today. It's definitely high-ish end goods, though the logos, as with Marrakech, may not be necessarily authentic. As I sit here gathering my thoughts about Casablanca at the Café de France, I'm struck, as I have been since I arrived, about how the wealthy and the poor abut one another. There's two chaps in front of me in three-piece suits and ties, and others who are trying to flog you a cheap and probably dodgy SIM card, and they're just walking past one another. I'm not sure that Casablanca anymore is the destination that it might have been. For example, it's on the Atlantic coast, and yet you couldn't swim in the sea, for example, and it has virtually non-existent beaches, certainly close to the centre. But as a side trip, oh yes, definitely it's worth it. I certainly give Casablanca a go, but don't expect it to be like the movie. The movie, after all, was shot, as we said earlier, on a backlot in Hollywood in 1942. Ask Humphrey Bogart what he thinks of Casablanca. He would never have been able to tell you, because as far as records tell us, he never came here. But you can get here, and you can do it as a side trip, and it's well connected by rail through the Moroccan rail system. Very easy to book, and you can book the Moroccan rail system from the comfort of your own home, as I did. You'll get a QR code and show that when you board the train. Very easy, very straightforward, very sophisticated, very advanced. Casablanca, great side trip. Final night in Marrakech, and as I promised earlier, I brought you back into the main square of the city. The old Medina on one side, and here we are in the main square, which I haven't given a name of, but I will. It's Jemaa El Fnar. Jemaa El Fnar is where we were a couple of days ago, and at night it's different again. It's busier, there are more stalls. They're still selling many of the same things, the fruits, the meats. There's more music, there are more people here than there are during the day. It is a real magnet for the folk of Marrakech. And not only do you find the traditional stalls that are covered in canvas, but on the edge of the square any number of restaurants, from high-end like La Adresse to basic pizza places where you can pick up a pizza for $6 or $7, not a lot of money. My personal favourite, and I'm walking towards it now, is Tagine Dana, Tagine where I had an absolutely exquisite traditional Moroccan meal made in the tagine style, and it was absolutely lovely, and I recommend it. Not expensive, very, very good service indeed. I'll make some further reflections on Marrakech at the end, but I would just say that here on the last night, in the night, surrounded by all these people, these wonderful warm people of Marrakech, it has certainly been a place worth visiting. So some concluding thoughts from Morocco, from Marrakech and from Casablanca. If your idea of a perfect holiday is to be flown somewhere, met, all-inclusive, nobody bothering you, not getting out to see the scenery, Marrakech is not for you. But if you're looking for a place that has a vibrancy, a life, a joy to it, then you should consider coming here. Yes, it's tatty, scruffy, bit smelly, but it also has a life and energy about it that you'll find in, frankly, so few places, especially if you're packaged together to the Spanish costas, for example, or even corralled around Venice on a public tour. This has got so much going for it. You can be left to your own devices. You can find a package if you need to, but it is a great place to come, get your bearings and discover for yourself. I've been really taken with Marrakech in particular. Casablanca to a certain degree, you've heard my thoughts on that one, but if you're looking for a real full-on different holiday experience, you should consider Morocco. You should certainly consider Marrakech.